Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the North East Non-League Show, sponsored by DJ Private Hire, Gateway Accountancy Services Limited, Elite Goalkeeper Academy, and Motivate. Tonight is our Hartlepool season review show, and joining us tonight is Callum and Alex. Lads, thank you very much for joining us on the show tonight.
No problem.
Evening.
So you tell the wife, so we have actually moved from the garage into the living room. Luxury tonight for the show, and tomorrow night as well. Happy days. So it should go well right next to the internet box as well. But yeah, hopefully, I know we've just been chatting there and laughing on, but it's supposed to be end of season, just having a chat about the season. But as typical Hartlepool, and we've got a Blythe Spartan show tomorrow night, both managers gone. So much going on, lots to chat about. Where do we start? I mean, Kevin Phillips as well. I mean, the statement came out, the 27 contract came in, but obviously since then we've had the statement from Kevin Phillips himself on BBC. The 2-year deal was in place. This has happened. Going to go up and down and meet players, and all of a sudden it's being pulled. I mean, start with there. What's your thought on Kevin Phillips' situation?
Where do we start? Personally, I was shocked, very shocked by it, because if you read the club statement, it all reads he's done everything he was asked to do, he's achieved his goals, he's fulfilled his brief, and then we're getting rid of him. It's like it takes a massive left turn at the end. It's just suddenly we're getting shot of him, and I mean, it begs the question why. I mean, I'm surprised. He was talking about rebuilding for next season. He was asked the question in the press, are you going to be here next summer? His response was 100% yes. I mean, just what?
Oh, that's crazy. I mean, same thoughts as well, Alex. Colin, sorry.
It's just baffling, I think, from every single Pils fan when it was sort of mentioned on the Friday night at first, when it started doing the rounds on socials. Everyone was just like, no, like, why would we randomly do it out of nowhere? And then, like Alex mentions, the club statement says how well he's done. He's ticked every box on what he needed to do, and then all of a sudden it's cheers very much, thank you very much, see you later, and no one really knows why. I know one of the board of directors, who's meant to be, I forgot his name off the top of my head, but he's done a statement with the Hartlepool Mail about it, and he's meant to be explaining the reason and why, but doesn't really mention why, just sort of standard. It sounds like a politician, if anything, but it's no rhyme and reason behind why he's had the contract pulled.
Without being too controversial about it, it seems very much like Phillips has been used as a scapegoat or thrown under the bus a little bit. Sal, how quickly it's happened in terms of Friday night, the rumblings of his contract's not being renewed, and then the next morning, 10 minutes after the statement's been released, Sal's appointed. Yeah. It almost seems like they wanted to appoint Sal in January, which I think they did. But because of his situation with Woking and being on gardening leave and all this other stuff, they couldn't. So they appointed Phillips, and then I don't know if maybe Phillips did better than they expected him to do. Yeah, there was a couple of strange results, like the Gateshead thing that we'll probably mention. There was a couple of strange results, but you wouldn't have said when he came in and we were looking over our shoulders at relegation, and then we end up being, comfortably 12th, which is only, I believe, our third, if you include the COVID season, second top half finish since 2006-07. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, do you think something's kind of gone in the background? They mentioned, obviously, I know he came out and said he's going to use his Southern links to try and bring in a few players over the summer. He was going to sit down and talk to players. Do you think he's kind of gone and said, right, I want this player, that player to stay, and there could have been a falling out? I mean, something's got to have happened in that little period between that week of him leaving and obviously Sal coming in. Just what's gone on in the background? Do you think, what would be the main reason for yourself, do you think?
It seems very much like promises were made that weren't kept. I hate to say that, because if you read Kevin Phillips' statement, a 2-year deal was agreed. I came to sign it, and that was reneged on. That doesn't. I mean, for one thing, I don't think that's good business, but that doesn't suggest that he's been. He was given the truth. Someone. I'm not blaming anyone, but someone has clearly misled him, because he wouldn't have said 100% I'm going to be here. I want to use my Sunderland links to do this. I've been talking to X player, Y player, Z player. and I'm thinking about bringing these players in. If any rumblings, anything suggested to him that this was going to happen, and I think his statement says that it came as much of a shock to him as it did to all of the fans kicking off and everyone. And yeah, mad.
Yeah, it is just a weird circumstance, and even from a media perspective, and I imagine you can see it on your side, Alex, but from a media perspective, for a club to offer a manager a contract and then pull it from underneath him a couple of days later, like even if we'd have said, look, you've ticked all the boxes, thank you very much for your service, but we've got a different idea of why we want the club to go, at least be honest with the fans, with the manager, and do it that way, as opposed to go, here's your contract, and then 2 days later go, actually, no, it's not, and then just completely change it around, makes the club look, well, standard of what we've seen over the past 6 or 7 years or so. So nothing changes there.
But that's the thing, isn't it? You say it makes the club look bad. What manager in their right mind would look at the club and go, "Yeah, I want to work there"?
Yeah,
exactly.
When you see what's happened, Dave Challoner aside, and Dave Challoner, people still think he's the snake for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But Dave Challoner aside, look at what's happened with all of the managers over the last few seasons. Great. This, apart from the fact that we had a manager within 5 minutes of the announcement, this is exactly what happened to Graham Lee.
Yeah, exactly what happened. And his happened a match before the season ended, which was even a bit of a kick in the teeth. But yeah.
So
it was a crazy one. But like you say, Raj actually came out and said, job done, kept us up 12. But like you say, it was overall kept from where you were at that time. Kevin Phillips coming in, obviously did a great job as well. But as you said, I think the worst thing about it, they could have just waited possibly till the Monday to announce the new manager. But I think that makes it even more worse that something has been gone in the background where they've had this deal lined up and someone's kind of had to go and tell Kevin Phillips, unfortunately, sorry, we now don't want you. We've now got Darren Sarll. And I know I came in, I think it was after the kids' football match. Came round. I'm not too big on the South Down. I think, first of all, who is this? Obviously, I had to get the Google out and have a little search. I mean, what was your thoughts when you first seen the message come out?
I'd never heard of him at first, but then, as you say, he's only really managed Southern teams. You look at Woking, and obviously Yeovil as well. I wasn't fully aware of the whole garden leave issue and stuff like that, like Alex mentioned. I know I read one or two after he was announced and the allegations that we were going to take him on in January but wouldn't pay for his contract and all of that stuff and everything I saw with him. But his record seems to be a weird one where he has done well with teams, got them into the playoffs with both Yeovil and Woking, but then all of a sudden seasons after done the complete opposite and took them the other way. So I mean, I wish him all the best. I do hope he does well, but
well, I was going to say that I feel a little bad for him.
Yeah,
because I think the one thing that I think it's safe to say Kevin Phillips had got back was that connection with the fans. And he really got that. Dave Challoner had it. Graham Lee had it to an extent. Paul Hartley never had it, but we don't talk about him. Keith Curl was just odd, and then Askey was pragmatic, and that was him. I'm not knocking John Askey. I quite like John Askey, but Kevin Phillips really had that. He got the fans. He really got into it. He got involved. He was honest in his post-match. He didn't beat around the bush. If we were terrible, he would say that wasn't good enough. We need to do this. And then, like, Darren Sarll's come in under this cloud, and as Callum said, wish him all the best, because ultimately we want Hartlepool United to do well. But like, I heard the name Darren Sarll, and I'm not going to lie, I thought, well, this seems like a step backwards, and that's no disrespect to him. But I did know a bit about him from his time at Yeovil and Stevenage, and basically my impression of him was that he plays hoofball, and he's very direct and very not like our teams tried to be of late. And I just thought, well, if the board wanted exciting football, I'm not saying everything was rosy with Kevin Phillips, because it wasn't. There was results that weren't good enough and things like that there, but it felt like the ideas he had matched up with what we wanted. I'm not saying it was like when we had Dave Challoner and the team was a relentless, like, hive that just buzzed around and constantly got in everybody's way and overran teams. But it seemed like that was more the style of football he wanted to play. And if Darren Sarll comes in and proves me wrong, I'll be quite happy with it, you know, and I'll eat my words. But when you manage a team like Stevenage, you don't play attractive football, you play rugby. Yeah. And like that's what I thought. And I thought, well, I know he's not young because he's 50, but in terms of management, he was young in terms of his experience, Kevin Phillips, if you know what I mean. And we had a young manager in that sense who wanted to create an identity for the club. I'm not saying Darren Sarll doesn't do that, and he speaks well. But what manager doesn't speak well? You don't get appointed if you don't speak well. Let's be honest.
Exactly. You're all coming at the same interview, isn't it? Our first time we're going to do this. I think it's the same script that everyone reads. Yeah. Any new chairman that comes in, any new players and everything as well. I mean, you look at his record and you kind of touch on obviously the Stevenage League 2, the Yeovil, the job he did at Walton, but they kind of missed out last season where they finished kind of below mid-table. But it could be one of those clever moves where he's got the experience in that division. He's worked with players, but it's the same again. He's worked with the South, where is he going to attract the players that he might have worked with the South to come all up and play up at Hartlepool in the North East? It's going to be a strange one of what players that he can attract to come up there and play under him. Because there's always a manager wherever they go, there's 2 or 3 players that follow him everywhere. Mm-hmm. Will they do the same coming from South and North? You know, footballers don't like to move to that.
No.
So
the other thing about the experience is we probably had the most experienced National League manager we could have had at the beginning of this season in John Askey. You know, he had form, he'd taken clubs up. Sarll had got teams to the playoffs. Now, the playoffs, don't get me wrong, if we get to the playoffs, brilliant, but the playoffs aren't got up necessarily. Yeah. You know, where, like when we appointed Challoner, he had form of, I believe still, Dave Challoner in all of his seasons as a manager, apart from the COVID season, has finished either in the playoffs or got promoted. It says it all.
Doing very well, isn't he? But no, a lot to watch now. What's your thoughts, obviously, on the Kevin Phillips, the Sarll situation, and obviously going to get up to sing in a minute as well. Get them comments in. Again, thank you so much for watching. I think we had 100 and some new subscribers over the last couple of weeks. Well, it's been absolutely flying. So thank you so very much. And please keep hitting that subscribe button as well. But the next one, obviously, Raj Singh. Where do we start there? I mean, going for a boat, I mean, what actually do you think goes on with his head? I mean, the club, is it still for sale? What's kind of going on? I mean, what's your thoughts on the Raj Singh situation?
Where do we start? Is a very good question. Yeah. Well, we all know what's gone on throughout the season with the potential new owners and the consortium of the American ex-poolies and all of that. That was promising millions, and then Raj is saying they're not, and they're saying they are, and all that to and fro, which obviously petered out to nothing in the end. And apparently the other multiple offers that he's had previously where the new prospective owners have offered X amount, agreed whatever Raj is looking for, and then all of a sudden he's pulled the plug again and again and again. And even though he keeps saying he's looking for new investment, he's looking to sell the club, is he? Is a question that I think a lot of fans keep asking. Is he actually wanting to sell it, or is he just saying it to keep us happy and keep the club plodding on?
Yeah, I mean, what's your thoughts on him, Alex, at the minute?
Unfortunately, in my position, I can't say a lot. But no, I tend to agree. I think there is a degree of what does he actually want at this point, even with regards to the Phillips decision. Like, what does he want? You know, does he want the like I said, Kevin Phillips, who had an idea of where he wanted to go and what he wanted with the football club and a team that does well. Does he want us to get promoted? Presumably, yes. But you've got to question it. And I understand his trepidation to sell the club lightly, because you could sell it to anybody. Look at clubs like Reading, you know, and I understand it's got to be the right people. But one thing I did find interesting was earlier in the season when it all kicked off, not the time with the trust thing, but there was a time before that when it all kicked off, and he actually said by name the Americans, and he never acknowledged that it was Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney. Before then, that was the first time he actually acknowledged that it was those who'd made the bid. And I found that quite interesting. It's like, because at the time it was, no, I didn't know who they were. They were just some random people who contacted me through a third party or whatever. And people were like, fair enough. If you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah.
But like looking at it then, it's like he to say the Americans and name them, that was a quite telling for me. And you know, like Callum says, it's like, what does he want? Does he want to sell or not?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. No, it's true. When you look at Rex now, you think, God, what could have been?
That Saturday a couple of weeks ago was just like what could have been, because Stockport and Wrexham got promoted.
Yeah.
And it was like that. Don't get me wrong, I'm delighted for Dave Challoner, because I was never one of the fans who was like, Dave Challoner's a snake, he's whatever. I was like, you know, fair play to him. But like, yeah, that was just a bit of a kick in the teeth, really. It was what could have been for sure.
Yeah, but you're completely right there, Colin. I mean, you mentioned obviously local people sponsorships as well, and you're kind of looking at people who are going to say, right, we want this amount to put a sponsor board up. Why would you want to give them money? Are you going to still sell the club? I mean, I know it's only, I say it's quite close now. It's only 6 divisions below, but now working with West End. I mean, I've had a few people literally messaging them through there wanting to do some more sponsorship deals for us as well, because we're trying to get the local community together and stuff like that, and everyone's coming together. Where you look at Hartlepool now, and if Raj or his team is saying, right, sponsor this company, can you give us X amount of money to put this up or do this? They're going to say no, because you don't know where the money's going to go. Will he just get the money and take it? When he sells the club, you just don't know what's happening. And it's really interesting to kind of see what happened going into next season as well. But the season itself just gone. I mean, you look at overall and you kind of look at ASCII, club up for sale. Phillips comes in, plays in and out, as always. Relegation almost, push up towards the playoffs and then slide back down to mid-table. It's pretty much how it went. I mean, start with yourself, Callum. What was your thoughts on the season overall?
Well, start of the season, I think within the first couple of weeks, and I think we all thought, mint, it's actually worked. I mean, we had Mancini running rings around absolutely everybody in the league, and flying at one point. And then, lo and behold, 2 major injuries in Dodds and Mancini within the space of, 24 hours or something. And then it just spiraled from there, if we're honest, and completely spiraled to the point where we're casually flirting with relegation, as you do. I mean, it is a shame for John ASCII, because I personally liked him as a manager. And as Alex mentioned earlier on, he's a known, really good National League manager. And for it to sort of fall apart the way it did was a bit disappointing with it all, but I suppose things happen with that. Phillips taken over, definitely got the fans back on side, that's for sure. And obviously that bit of a push on up to 12th in the league, and the little unbeaten home run that we had, he got them playing decent football for once. And then, end of the season, I think we've gone over that in enough detail of where that's happened, but there we go.
Yeah, and yourself, Alex?
Yeah, I think start of the season was fantastic. You know, we had a tough opening game against Barnet, which we narrowly lost in the end. Then won 5 in a row, had our best start for 30 years, and then the wheels fell off. I don't think there's any other way to put it. You know, like you say, I think losing any team. I'm sure we said this last time we were on. Any team, you take 3 players out of them. I don't care who they are. You take 3 key players out of a team. And, you know, Mancini, Dodds and Callum Cook at the time, we lost them all. And, you know, the team was a shell of itself. You know, Mancini came back a little bit, but wasn't 100%. Hopefully next season he'll be back to his ways in there. The biggest question for me is, because I've never known a season where we've had so many injuries. Why? You know, like every football club gets injuries. I don't care what level of football you're playing at, whether you're playing on Sunday League or whether you're playing at the Champions League. Every club will get injuries. But I have never seen in my 20 years of following Hartlepool United that many injuries, and that many injuries to key players. You know, like say Dodds, Mancini, Cook were just 3 at the tip of the iceberg. Kieran Wallace was never fit. Josh O'Meara, who it could have been a really big season for, will have been as frustrated as anybody that he basically had 2 big injuries and couldn't play for the majority of the season. Who else? You know, we lost Luke Hendry, who came in and was doing really well for us at right back in Dodds' absence. Every centre-back we ever had, apart from Waterfall and Parks, by the end of it, was either not good enough or injured. It begs the question, like, why did we have so many injuries? And next season, that's got to be put right. if it's because the players are training on 4G, that needs to be rectified.
That would be a massive factor. Yeah.
If it's because, how they were training, I don't know. I'm just speculating, But if the players, for me, the players should be playing on grass, unless it's like snow outside.
Exactly.
Then get them in. But like, they need to be. Why was there so many injuries? And it did peter out. I don't think we were ever in danger of relegation. I think there was always 4 worse teams than us. But it gets nervy. But then, the season finished 12th was a respectable finish after what had happened. And then the less said about the last couple of weeks, the better. Or the last week, the better. But yeah, I think that's the biggest question for me. Why so many injuries?
Yeah.
Yeah, 4G pitches 100%. Takes me about a week to recover just off playing a 90-minute match on it. Then by training every day on it. But before we get into next season, obviously with the quick fire round at the end, chatting about next season, I think one of the main things I want to focus on, obviously, with Phillips, as he kind of sat down with some players before the retain list had come out. Obviously, new manager comes in, the retain list not long afterwards. I mean, how has that been sorted? Where has that been sorted? How can a new manager come in and still think of some people that's been offered deals and stuff like that to actually want to play at this club? I mean, what's going on in the background to kind of say who's staying, who's going? I mean, what's your thoughts on the list itself?
Yeah, I've heard a couple of things on this one from other Pils fans that follow them both home and away, that allegedly Saul was at the last couple of games. Now, whether or not that's true, I'm not entirely sure, but has he been watching them and knows who he wants, or has he had someone watching them who he knows who he wants, or is it a board decision of who they want to keep and stuff like that? I mean, I know as soon as it was released, it was mentioned between us and obviously all over the socials, and I think a few people were shocked that we let Cook and Crawford go and basically left us with next to no midfield by offering Featherstone a new deal, which I hope Featherstone does come through and we can have at least something in the middle before the start of next season. But
well, the way Darren Sal plays, we might not need one.
Yeah, possibly not. Just have him in the middle and just put it over the top of him. We'll be fine. Just put 2 big lads up front. We'll be good. But yeah.
I mean, what was your thoughts on Alex when you seen the list when it first came out?
Yeah, I think we always knew there was going to be a clear out. We always knew there was players going to be leaving. The likes of all of Paul Hartley's signings. The surprises for me, Josh O'Meara and Crawford. Cook, for me, just my opinion, was very hit and miss, and I'm not surprised he's left. But Crawford, I thought, had come on this season. I'm not saying he's the greatest midfielder in the world, but I think, he got 5 or 6 goals from midfield this season and was always there. I thought maybe he'd done enough to earn himself a contract. And O'Meara, I appreciate, has been injured all season and was out of contract. So we don't know if he was offered a contract and has turned it down. But he had enough credit from what he did in League Two to earn another chance in this league. He's been injured a lot this season. Had to play second fiddle to Manny D, understandably, because Manny's been excellent. But I think they were the surprises. As much as I might have liked Eden Pruty, he didn't fit in at the club, clearly, because no one seemed to want him there. Alex Lacey, nice guy, wasn't fit enough, so it didn't surprise me that he was released.
Yeah.
The Scotsman, we knew they were going anyway. Miguel Njoli, remember him? It's like there was a lot of players who, they were there, but they weren't there. We needed rid of. So I wasn't too surprised. And the other surprise I thought was Dixon being just transfer listed, because as much as he hasn't had the best season, and he'll admit that himself, if he leaves, we have 0 goalkeepers again.
Yeah. And it's a key position, isn't it? Like you say, you've got to have that stability between defenders, goalkeeper. That's a main part. Getting your centre backs, your keepers, your full backs, getting that set first before you're going anywhere. So that'll be interesting to see what happens in them positions. But obviously, looking at next season, well, I mean, obviously the last couple of weeks, what's happened? I mean, what's your kind of thoughts now? Obviously, there's going to be some players in and out again over the summer going at next season. I mean, what would you be your aims? I know it's very early at this stage. The season just finished. What would be your aims now for next season? Just get a few players in.
Yeah, optimistically.
5 aside, that'll do.
Yeah, get some signings in, start again, try and get out of this godforsaken league. That's and no disrespect to any other club in the National League, but as Hartlepool United Football Club, we want to be in the league.
Yeah.
So the aim, however long we're in this league, has got to be to get out of it the right way, not the other way.
I was going to say, as long as that message is passed on to Raj that we want to go up and not the other way to get out.
We don't want to meet Darlow, who spoiled the fun by staying up, didn't it? But as I said, no disrespect to any other club in the National League, but the likes of us, Rochdale, Oldham, the mission for all of those clubs, Barnet even, you could say, has got to be get promoted.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not me saying, we should be Billy Big Balls, but in this league, we are a big club. And I don't like using that expression about Pools because we're not a big club. But in this league, we're a big draw. We're a big team for other teams to come and play. So we need to. Our ambition has got to be get promoted.
Yeah.
Yeah, great that one, Colin.
I don't think I can say much more, to be honest, but I completely agree. As we need something. I want to use the word stability, but I don't think that's a word they use in the directors board. But there we go. We need something. We need a solid season. No major injuries, or not even minor injuries if we can, but just something to fully build on and push up. And playoffs would be nice. Automatic promotion would be better, but we're dreaming on that one. But you never know. Hopefully this time next year we're saying, we're on the tour bus around the town. But there we go.
Fingers crossed. And not quick fire on, which you're going to be asking all the fans that's coming over the next few weeks with the end of season reviews as well. I know there's a couple of questions I'll probably put together with the low and the worst match. I know we chatted about that before over the week as well. But start with yourself, Colin. Number one, what was your biggest high of the season?
Probably the 30 minutes being top of the league. I think that was a really good time at the start of the season. Apart from that, not much else. I'll chuck in pre-season. Beating Sunderland 5-2 was really nice as well. Bragging rights in the office at work, but there we go.
That was good, that And yourself, Alex?
Yeah, I would agree. The start of the season was great, but if I had to pick a later thing, I would say the York game away. It was excellent. The atmosphere was brilliant. Mm-hmm. That was the game I thought we'd clicked. We like Kieran Wallace actually seemed to be the player that we was brought in to be in that game, and apart from getting lamped by the referee. But it was like I saw it and it seemed like everything came together there. And to me, I thought this could be a turning point. This could be where our season kicks on. It could have been the Accrington game in Danny Wilson's season, for example. It wasn't, but that was a big high for me. Yeah.
The next question is kind of number 2 and number 4 together, Colin, for this one. What was your worst match and the biggest low of the season?
Do we dare mention it? But
I imagine, it's fine.
Yeah, I imagine you'd probably get the opposite answer of Dan Bell on the Gateshead one, but Gateshead away for us, that's for sure.
Yeah. Less said about it, the better.
Disagree that one, Alex.
No, I can't. I'd just got back from Japan, and it was my first day back at work, and they said, "Oh, you're covering sport," and I was like, "All right, cool." And I sat there, and every goal that went in, I had to think of another way to say Gateshead score. And it was like when the 5th one went in, I was like, "Do I just put 5? Do I just put 5?" And then I was sitting there in ops, just pulling my hair out. Honestly, it was horrific.
No, not a good night, that one. Question for you, Colin. What was your best match that you attended this season?
Probably, even though we got beat, it had to be Chesterfield away. Didn't make it York, unfortunately. Gateshead we've ticked off wasn't. But yeah, Gateshead away for me, even though we got beat 3-2 in the end, was a mint day out and an unbelievable atmosphere. Yeah,
we did good. And for yourself, Alex?
Yeah, I'd have to say York again. It was really nice. It was, it's an hour down the road. The ground's not bad, to be fair. It's weird because it's like you're right in the middle of a shopping centre, but it's a canny ground. And for me, in my position, I got to do whatever I liked. And I was sat behind the goal, and all the players ran right towards me, so it was great. But the atmosphere was just brilliant as well, and it was just a really nice day. Would have been better if we kept that clean sheet, but they were hard to come by this season.
Question 5 now, Colin. Who was your best player of the season?
Well, I think there's only one, let's be honest, but Manny Desaruve, that's for sure.
Yeah. And yourself, Alex?
Well, it is Manny Desaruwe, but I would also like special mention to Joe Gray, who I thought this season for me was make or break for Joe Gray. You know, it was his 4th season in the first team. He's only 20, don't get me wrong, but this was the season where we were either going to see he's going to make it as a footballer or he's going to fade into obscurity, and he made it. So Joe Gray.
Yeah. And number 6, I don't want to say the worst, I think it sounds bad, but who was your biggest letdown, who you thought could have done a lot more this season, Callum?
How long have we got? Yeah. God, out of the list, pick anyone out of the return list. To be honest, that's no longer here. But for me, it's probably either Njoli, if that's how you pronounce it. Didn't rate him at all, and I can't remember his name. The lad who was on loan from Barra, Adjuman.
Oh yeah, Adjuman.
Personally, didn't rate him an awful lot. I mean, thankfully he's only a loan player, but for where he's come from and where he's come on loan to, I don't think he did much, to be honest.
Yeah. And yourself, Alex?
I've already mentioned him actually, but Kieran Wallace. He was brought in, and it's probably not his own fault because he was injured perpetually, but he was brought in to be the replacement for Featherstone. And whether you like Featherstone or not, because a lot of people don't, Featherstone is better than him. And, you know, he came in with good pedigree. He came in from a team in Mansfield who were doing well. And it was like, oh, yeah, this could be a good player. But he never got going, whether it was because he was injured and he just never got over these little injuries or what. He just never got going. Next season could be different if he's still around. But, yeah, Wallace, I would have to say.
Yeah. And next season, Colin, number 7, we're looking at positions. And who would that one player or what position do you think needs to be filled straight away next season?
All of them. Judging by the fact that we have 12 contracted players, 2 of which are transfer listed, and as Alex mentioned, if Dixon goes, no keeper. Yeah, probably all of them, but so that's about all I can say. But no, I think we need a solid goalkeeper first and foremost. We can't be switching between 2 throughout the season and not have a set number 1 and sub. We need someone to start from the back and go from there.
Yeah, yourself, Alex?
If it wasn't a goalkeeper, because we've established we need a goalkeeper, probably, as we've now decimated our midfield, a midfielder. But if I was to be specific, I would like to see a winger, a proper tricky winger who can get the balls in for Desaruwe or Joe Gray, who, if we played 2 up top, if it was them 2 up top, get the balls into them. Ferguson does it on the left-hand side, but we don't really have one on the right-hand side. It looked like Otis Khan might have been that player, but he lasted 45 minutes. So, you know, maybe a nice winger who's actually a winger. And I'd hate this 4-3-3 where they play a striker and 2 wingers. Just get an actual winger.
Get the winger, get the ball in the box. I know Mason just mentioned, I've got a question. Do you think, lads, that they'll think Rowan Ince mentioned there? And I think with a lot of players, well, I think you've got to, and I think it's a shame of the manager come from South, because I think if Kelvin Phillips was to stay, if he did stay, I think you look only a division below that, the amount of North East sides that's having all the success on the playoffs, winning the leagues, I can imagine there'll be 1 or 2 going, he's had a good season, can they bring him on a week to try to see what they're like? Obviously, Newcastle, Sunderland's going to Borough, going to be releasing players very short as well, just to get that North East feel back to the club as well, and getting some lads who's going up there and fighting for the area and fighting the club. It would have been nice to see as well, I think, wouldn't it?
It would, but I think the other thing you have to put into perspective with this is now we're probably 5th choice in the North East, you know, because if you would say Borough, Newcastle and Sunderland were 1, 2 and 3, Gateshead are definitely above us now, because, you know, because they should be in the playoffs by rights, but they're not because of nonsense. You know, Harrogate aren't quite northeast, but they're, you know, similar sort of position. They could also look to those sorts of teams. York as well could look at players from those sorts of teams. You know, are we that attractive as a team? And to answer Mason's question, I don't know a lot about run-ins, so I couldn't tell you on that one, I'm afraid. But, you know, you're right when you say Kevin Phillips was looking at these players from Sunderland, particularly because obviously he's got links there. But do they want to come to pools?
That's it, isn't it? Yeah. And final question as well for yourself, Colin. How would you, out of 10, rate the season?
I'd probably go with a modest 3, maybe pushing it, just because of how good of a start we had. The bit in the middle with Phillips coming in and pushing us back a little bit. But other than that, a bit of a disappointing season. And we haven't actually mentioned it in this, but the fact that we got knocked out before we could even get in the FA Cup official for the first time, I think, in the club's history, I think that summed up the season. So there we go.
Yeah. Yourself, Alex?
It's a slightly more optimistic, solid 5. It not great. Not great. Like I say, a club of our stature in this league shouldn't be struggling for a long part of the season as we were, and having as many injuries as we did. So it's a 5. It's not good, but it's not awful. 12th place finish is probably about right.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, slightly more optimistic than Callum's 3, but a 5 nonetheless.
But no, I think tonight it's just nice to get off your chest a little bit. Like you say, I know we expect a little couple of weeks, a bit quieter, but it's all happened so fast. But hopefully now in the next couple of weeks, it should be a quiet couple of weeks for you.
Don't say that.
If we'd done this a week ago, this would have been a completely different show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally, wouldn't it? Excellent. But no, Alex, Callum, thank you very much for coming on the show tonight. Really appreciate your support as always on the channel.
No worries. Pleasure as always.
No worries, thank you.
Excellent. I just want to dedicate the show as well to a massive Hartlepool fan that sadly passed away during the week as well, George Podge Harland. He goes by a local lad from Peterlee. Family knows him really well as a lovely lad who's unfortunately has passed away. So we dedicate the show to him tonight as well. But thank you everyone that's been watching as always. We really appreciate support. As always, Blythe Spartans tomorrow night. Same things happen there. It's funny you mentioned that one. I've heard on the grapevine from a good source. Former Hartlepool player Nobby Solano could be in the frame there. Obviously, massive takeover. I think the chairman just wants to appoint a big name to see how it goes. I don't think it'll work out very well, that one, but we'll see what happens on that one. But yeah, tune in tomorrow night, 9:10 for the Blythe Spartans season review as well. But thank you so much for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your night as well.